Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing a Mordekaiser guide for Season 9. So special thanks to Marcus for the generous donation. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to donate for a guide yourself, you can just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. Just $30 if you're not a channel member. If you are a channel member, then it's $5 off. So it's $25. Channel membership, I'll have a link to in the description as well if you want to know more about that. But it's basically $5 a month, like a Twitch sub. And you get to join our members-only Discord. You get to come out and play normals with us every Sunday if you want. It's really fun. Good way to build the community up. Just, enjoy some chill games with other people that also support the channel. And then, of course, you get the $5 discount on any guides or coaching sessions that you might like in the future as well. So look into that, see if you're interested in it, and if you want to, know if you want to sponsor a guide, once again, just email me, strategyprofessor@gmail.com. Okay, so just throwing this out there first, I am not a Mordekaiser expert. I have very limited experience on Mordekaiser. Marcus knows this. He's aware of this. I explained this to him. But I did some research, and I think I've got some stuff that can help you out, help you understand Mordekaiser, the situations where he might be good, and how to play him, sort of approaching an optimal path to play him. Let's go ahead and get in here and try to see if we can understand Mordekaiser first as well. If you enjoy this content, I'll also have a link in the description to more champion guides that I have, many of which I have a lot more experience with, like a lot of the support guides. But even if it's something that I haven't personally played a lot, I can still research it and try to give some pretty good commentary on it. So that's what we have going on here. Okay, so whenever you shield yourself, you get, whenever you deal damage, 25% of the damage that you deal turns into a shield, and there's a maximum amount of shield on you. So basically, whenever you hurt things, you get a shield. Particularly with your E, I believe you get a bonus shield. For each champion hit, you generate a bonus percentage of shield, but you're not going to be maxing your E with most of the builds. But that is like an old school way that Mordekaiser was played many years ago, is you just kind of AFK push with your shield or with your Siphon of Destruction, and just have like a big permanent shield up. But they've nerfed that over time. They've nerfed how much of a shield you get, and they've also nerfed how fast it decays over time. Because like back in Season 3 or Season 2, he was actually a really strong champion top lane. He would even get banned a lot of the time because there just were not a lot of other champs that could match his push, and he would just be able to AFK push into you with this permanent shield, and there really wasn't a lot of counterplay to him. But they've since nerfed a lot of that. So he still has that mechanic, but it's not as strong as it has been in seasons past. So if you're watching like a super old guide, it's probably going to be talking about some outdated mechanics like that. Okay, so his Mace of Spades, basically your 3 attacks deal bonus magic damage, with the third one doing a lot of damage. Now it's important to note, it doesn't have to be the third attack against the same person or against the same object. So you can actually charge this up with 2 attacks on minions, and then if a person is pretty close to dead, you could potentially flash on them, hit them with the third one, and then just ult them and spam the rest of your spells, your E, and all that kind of stuff. If you take ignite them, and catch them off guard with a lot of damage. That's one thing that can really sneak up on people sometimes, is if he switches target with that third hit, charges it up on minions or charges it up on the support or something like that, and then flashes and hits the carry with the third one. It does up to 180% of your total AD, not your bonus AD. Your total AD, 120% of your AP, and then just 100 flat damage once you get this maxed out. So that's quite large. I mean, it's not uncommon to hit somebody for like 700 or 800, in the mid to late game with this. So that's something really sneaky you can do to kind of charge this up. And then this is where you start kind of reading the novel, trying to understand how this works. And this is what you actually max out first. Most of the time is Mordekaiser this day and age. That's what I see a lot of people doing. You gain bonus experience when you kill a minion near allies, equal to 50% of the experience that you lost due to dividing up the experience among multiple people. So in other words, you get a lot of extra experience if you're near other people. So this is when they were trying to balance Mordekaiser to be a bot lane AD carry substitute. I think that was in Season 4, Season 5, when they tried to rebalance him with that in mind. So I think that Mordekaiser this is going to be for top Mordekaiser primarily. I think that his best position is actually in the bot lane if you do have like something with a lot of CC and burst, like a Leona or a Thresh or like a Zyra, something like that. It's actually really nice because that can sort of compensate for some of the weaknesses that he has, which we'll talk about in a minute, which is basically he doesn't have CC and he's immobile. He can do a lot of burst damage, and if you do take him into a duo lane, then he is going to gain levels a little bit faster than the enemy AD carry because he's not splitting the experience as much. It also puts you closer to Dragon, which is something that we'll see here in a little bit, and that's one of his most powerful attributes, is if he can get that Ghost Dragon, it's going to be very, very strong. But if you're playing top lane Mordekaiser, this isn't really going to matter that much. I guess if your jungler comes up there and ganks and you guys get a kill and you're trying to push the lane, you'll get a little bit of extra experience there. Or in team fights later on, you know, you might get a little bit of extra experience, or if your team's like A-ramming, trying to siege or something. But this is not going to be that impactful unless you're down in the bot lane duo. Okay, so that's just a passive. That just happens without doing anything. Now, this, he puts a circle on an ally. This can be a minion. This can also be, you know, a champion. And you gain 75% bonus movement speed when you're moving towards each other. So if an ally is running towards you, they get the speed, or if you're running towards the ally that has this, they get the speed. So a trick like this, if you're trying to run up, you know, really close to the enemy, then you can actually cast this on a minion that's close to them. Or if for some reason they are, I guess the range is 1,000, but if they're like trying to dive you or trying to attack you through the minions, you can cast this on a minion, and it'll allow you to have that movement speed to run forward and potentially catch up to the enemy a lot faster. So that's, or if like the jungler runs in or whatever, you can cast this on the jungler, and that'll allow you to speed up to catch up to him. So there's a lot of utility in getting that speed and allowing you and your ally to move in and out of combat. Whenever you're close to each other, when it's the circle, you'll get the circle around you. Whenever those are overlapping, then you do extra damage per second, right, in an area of effect, which actually equals a pretty good chunk of damage. You know, can equal 300 damage and then 90%. This is once again why in the bot lane, if you put this on the support, you can keep this up for a long time. It gives them speed, and it gives you a lot of extra damage. Whereas if you put this on a minion in a solo lane, it can work, but if the minion dies or if they kill the minion, then they're not going to be taking damage off of this effect. So, interesting sort of interactions there. And then for 4 seconds, you can reactivate it. So what happens if you reactivate it, then it does dealing magic damage as well as allies. So it does this amount of damage always, no matter how much damage you did with this, it's still going to do this amount. So it's always going to do, if you max this out, 190. Then it's going to heal you per enemy hit. Heals you and your ally for an amount hit, up to 2 enemies hit in the respective areas. So it can be in either person's circle that can get hit by this. And so your heal per enemy goes to 190. So you can get up to a 380 heal, which is quite a lot. But your heal for minions is capped at only getting a maximum heal of 95 from minions. So you can't get that much healing from minions anymore off of this. So you can get extra shielding off of minions to an extent, but you can't get a heal with this. Actually, it's for each champion hit, so they changed that. So that, like, back in the day, it used to be if you hit minions with it too. So it's only for each champion hit that you gain extra bonus percentage shield. But yeah, so you want to max this out because it does like your most kind of consistent damage and gives you a lot of healing and adds in all this extra movement speed. So if someone stays in this thing for the whole time, you know, the potential is 300 damage plus 190 with a 1.2 AP ratio. So that's pretty high. And on top of that, you get a very large heal, which has a decent AP ratio to it as well. So, you know, you could be healing for 450, 500 damage in the mid game off of that. So this is what you'll definitely want to max out first. It's got a lot of utility. It's got some practice to figure out how to use it correctly. I mean, the obvious one is you put it on the jungler when they're running in, or if you're in the bot lane, you put it on your ally. But some of the more creative uses are you can put it on a minion to allow you to run up and get closer to them and to do some extra damage when you're trading just one-on-one in laning phase. So that's interesting to keep in mind. And then Siphon of Destruction. You know, this just does AoE cone damage in front of you. This is a pretty good wave clear tool just to push them up. You do get some shield off of it, although you don't get the extra shield unless it's an enemy. And then we have his ults. This is one of the coolest ults in the game. I mean, this is kind of what makes Mordekaiser, and I think makes him appealing and interesting for a lot of people. It's on a pretty short cooldown. The range is very short. So it's only got 650 range. So you have to get pretty close to them for an ultimate. Like, this is really hard to get this on the backline AD carry in a lot of instances unless you get a flank. But it does a percentage of their maximum health over time. So it's over a long period of time, to over 10 seconds. So you curse the enemy and they take all this extra magic damage, and you heal yourself for 25% of the total damage that you're dealt. And 25% of the damage is dealt immediately, and then 75% is dealt thereafter. So it puts a dot on them for 10 seconds. So when we start talking about the itemization, there are a couple of items that are extremely powerful with this. Number one is Rylai's. So Rylai's, that'll put a slow on them for an entire 10 seconds, which allows you to get closer to them and to deal even more damage. The other one would be Liandry's. So Liandry's, every single tick of this is going to end up giving a tick of Liandry's. And if you have Rylai's plus Liandry's, then it's going to do an additional, 10 seconds. I think it's 6% of your max health if they're slowed. So that could be like up to, I believe, now it's dealt over 2.5 seconds though. But let me just look up Liandry's here real quick. That would mean that it's like 60% of their maximum health dealt over time. 7.5% of their maximum health against slowed targets. Now that's dealt over the course of 3 seconds, but I believe over 10 seconds, it's going to be a hell of a lot of damage. Just know that. It's going to be like 50% of their max health damage or more, in addition to your... Now, that's before Magic Resist, and because Magic Resist does affect this, obviously. But it's going to be a lot of their maximum health. As this is dealing a flatline amount of 25%, and you get 4 per, 100 AP that you have, and then the Liandry's is going to do a ton extra. So... very, very powerful. And then not only that, but if you kill the person, then you get a ghost of that person who has extra combat stats. So it sort of tells you what the ghost is here. It's 100% of the target's maximum health. Then you get plus an additional 15% of Mordekaiser's maximum health. 100% of the target's total AD. Plus 100% of Mordekaiser's maximum AD. Bonus AD, rather. He's not going to get a lot of bonus AD. And you get extra attack speed, and so on and so forth. So the best target to take first that a lot of people try to get is the AD carry, because that means they're going to be doing a ton of extra damage for your team in team fights. But even getting something like a tank can be useful, although remember you can't use any of their abilities when they're ghosted. It's just all you can do is run around and auto attack. So usually the AD carry is the person that you ideally would want to pick up, or somebody else who has a lot of attack damage. They can critically strike as well, as you see here. So the AD carry, once again, if they have a lot of crit, that's going to be really handy. Now, I don't know like how things like Blade of the Ruined King interact, or like if you could take an on-hit AD carry. I assume that things like Vayne's Silver Bolts don't apply when she's ghosted, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure. I never see Mordekaiser like ever in my games hardly, and I haven't played him in years. But I don't think that extra on-hit works. I think they just do magic damage now and just do auto attacks. I know they can't activate any abilities. So, but I also don't know if their Blade of the Ruined King activates. I don't think it does. I think it's just whatever this is. So, Critical Strike works, but I think if you grab that, Rage Blade, Blade of the Ruined King, Vayne, it's not going to put out nearly the same amount of damage, I don't think. Although I could be wrong about that. And then when you get somebody's ghost, the ghosts gain 100% of his bonus AD, blah, 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 blah. I thought that Mordekaiser gained some stuff too. Bonus attack range, bonus movement speed. Okay, so they actually move slower. They move -50 at level 6. So yeah, Mordekaiser doesn't get empowered. That's like, I thought he was similar to Yorick in that sense, but he doesn't get empowered personally, I don't think. He just does all that damage, but they do. They get a lot of extra power. Okay. And then the other function of this is you can actually take the dragon. So if you damage the dragon... Now, keep in mind that this works even if your ult is on cooldown and even if you ult somebody else. But it does waste your ult. So if you have somebody else as a ghost, I believe, and then you take the dragon is going to kill your normal ghost. Your normal ghost is going to time out or whatever, and then you only have the dragon. I don't think you can have a dragon and a normal ghost on the field at the same time, but once again, not 100% about that. But I'm like 99% sure you can only have one ghost. Now, this thing is a big deal because dragons have a ton of health, as you know. They're ranged. They do a heck of a lot of damage. And so this is really what you want to try to get a lot of times is you really, really want to get dragons. Because whenever you get one of these, it makes it so much easier to take down towers, take down barons, even in team fights. Like, if you manage to get one of these, they're going to lose. People just have to back up because it does a lot of damage. And keep in mind that its damage is magic damage as well. The same thing with the normal ghost. And so that magic damage does slow people with your Leandries, and it does do extra damage or it slows people with your Rylais and does extra damage with the Leandries. It can also trigger things like your Airy, if you have Airy, and your Scorch, and stuff like that. So it counts as damage from you. If you take Ravenous Hunter or something like that, it can actually heal you for that amount as well. Or if you have something like Gunblade, Hextech Gunblade, or something else that gives you healing, Death's Dance, or whatever, then that dragon damage and the ghost damage does count as magic damage from you. So yeah, you want to try to be getting these dragons, just looking for ways to do that, managing your teleport so that you can get down there, tell your team, hey, we have an advantage bot lane, let's get down there and get these dragons. Or, of course, if you play them in the bot lane, then you want to be trying to push, get priority, and get those dragons ASAP because they are a very, very big deal. Dragons are good in general, but because he gets this amazing pet, which almost always guarantees you're going to get a tower if you use it correctly, it's almost like you're getting an extra Rift Herald every time that you get a dragon. So it's very, very strong. That's when Mordekaiser starts to become a little on the overpowered side. You know, if you can get to Leandries, if you can get to Dragon, then he's very, very strong. So he has these windows, he has these opportunities where he can look really, really strong, right? When he's got the Dragon, or even when he just gets a Ghost and he's like, you know, using this Harvester of Sorrow properly in team fights, and he's, you know, using his Siphon of Destruction. It just feels like he's almost impossible to kill in 5v5 fights. And he's healing himself, he's healing other people up. You know, remember, this 190 heal is on you and it's on your ally. So it can end up being a pretty big heal. And this can do, like, pretty huge spike damage. So he does have his moments where he can be very strong. I mean, it's not like he's a champion that can't win, right? He's got almost a 50% win rate, even though he's the 6th least played champion. So he has opportunities there, but he does have a lot of weaknesses as well. And so you want to be aware of that so that you can play him appropriately. So let's talk about that really quickly. So his strengths are, he has good shielding and sustain in lane. If it's just one-on-one, especially if he's against another tank and the jungler never shows up and he's just allowed to AFK push into the tower, he can actually be pretty strong. A lot of champions, especially early on, will have a hard time all-inning him, especially melee champions, because he has so many different ways to get shields and heals, and he does so much damage off of his Mace of Spades, his Q, if he gets all 3 hits on you, or even if he just gets that 3rd hit on you. It's really tough for a lot of people to deal with early. He also has great sieging with Dragon, which we just mentioned before. I mean, it has just a ton of HP. It has thousands and thousands of HP. It's ranged. It does a crap load of damage. And you can control the ghosts also yourself. A lot of amateur Mordekaisers won't really leverage the true power of those ghosts because they don't control them. Oops, I clicked him out. But basically, you can just hold down Alt and then right-click, and that'll control where your ghost and where your dragon go. I believe the dragon has global leash, too, so it never even runs back to you. So you could, in theory, have your dragon go split a side lane if you really wanted to. If you have Baron, I don't think the dragon would give out the Baron buff to a side lane, but once again, I don't know. I doubt it, though. I think only champions get it and not pets. But anyways, you really want those dragons. Those can be strong. And then if you get a ghost in a team fight, whether you have a dragon or you manage to especially grab their AD carry, but even if you only grab their frontliner, it can be very, very strong to do that because you're adding a lot of extra damage. The person has a lot of health. That ghost is really hard to kill in team fights, and it does a ton of damage. So if you can just get a ghost and just get that thing active in fights, it can be really, really strong. You can even throw stuff like Harvester of Soul on your ghost to give it extra healing and extra damage potentially. So the ghost is a really powerful mechanic out there. So you want to stay on top of that. And there are different strategies with this too. You know, I think a lot of times you just want to ghost whoever's going to die. If someone's going to die, if you're getting someone picked off, just ghost them. Just put the ult on them and turn them into a ghost. You might think, well, that's kind of a waste because that person's going to die anyways. So I think the ghost decays over time. No, it's just out for a certain duration. Okay. So it does not decay, but it just disappears after a certain length of time. But yeah, I think in a team fight, if you get a pick on somebody, your instinct might be, I don't want to waste my ult there. I want to use it on someone else so I can get maximum damage out of it. I want to put it on the AD carry on the back line. I don't want to waste it on this support. It's like, situationally maybe, but I think getting the ghost itself on board, getting that damage going, getting that extra presence in a fight is going to be a lot stronger than having your ult on somebody. But it's kind of up to you. It's up to your discretion. If it is just like a Soraka or something like that you could grab and you're going to be able to run down and fight the rest of them here in a second, maybe don't ghost it and just save it for the Twitch or even for a frontliner. But in general, I would say just getting the ghost. If you're not sure, just ghost and anyone that's going to die. Okay, because that just allows you to snowball that much harder. It basically gives you an extra champion. If they die, they have 4 people left. You have 5 people. Now you have a ghost, which is almost a 6th person. It can't use abilities, but it still does a lot of damage and still has a lot of health. So it just helps you snowball the fight harder. Okay, his weaknesses. The number 1 weakness is no mobility. In 2019, that is rough, which means that if anybody comes up there to gank you, you're probably going to die. Unless you can 1v2 them, you have to be really fed. But unless you can 1v2 them, you're not getting out. So he has, almost literally 0 escapes. The only thing you could possibly do to escape is if you have a minion wave coming in and you cast the W on your minion wave as it's running towards you, that could give you a little bit of extra movement speed to run out. But in general, it just makes him a sitting duck for ganks. So, and a lot of people know this, and they're going to camp Mordekaiser hard. And the thing is, he's at his strongest when he pushes. He really wants to keep pushing so that he gets his shield. Because that's how he deals with trades, is he just always has his shield up. And so you constantly want to be casting your abilities on the wave, just spamming your abilities and pushing up. And if the enemy top laner is savvy, they can freeze right outside of their tower in a lot of instances, and that's going to force you to come up if you want any CS, which means you're very vulnerable to ganks. So I would say, if you're thinking optimally about when to pick Mordekaiser, you want to make sure that you're going to have an enemy jungler. You need to tell your jungler, hey, come up here. You need to be confident they're going to help you out if you're going to AFK push. Or you need to have an invading jungler and just they have a really weak jungler or something like that. So if you have a Lee Sin or something and they have an Amumu, maybe you can push up and then go help your Lee Sin and invade the Amumu in their jungle. But you need to do something with that pressure when you push up other than just potentially get ganked. You need to try to go look for opportunities to get deep wards in the enemy jungle if you can, if it's safe to do that, or go on a mission with your AD carry or with your jungler to go invade them, or make sure you're securing scuttles, or maybe try to roam middle. Just do something with that extra pressure. So it can be a negative. He does have to push up. He has no mobility. He's very vulnerable to ganks. But at the same time, you can actually make that a strength if you're playing it into the right composition, where you're going to have pressure in your lanes and you're going to have a superior early game jungler, and you can do something with that pressure that you put in your lanes. You can go get scuttles. You can go invade the enemy, get wards, maybe take some of their camps, maybe go take their Gromp or something if you're on red side, or it's hard to take golems really quickly, and you're not very fast either. Obviously you don't have any mobility, so it's tough to roam down and grab their raptors or something. But that might be a possibility. If you have them fully pushed in a tower with a stack and a half, you might be able to rotate down river, grab the scuttle, and then go grab their raptors or something like that, and then rotate back, or whatever they're called, the birds, or rotate back right as the wave's going to hit your tower. So there are definitely options with that. It doesn't always have to be a negative thing, but the fact that he has no mobility does make him very, very vulnerable to ganks. He has limited split push potential, so he can push. That's not the problem. The problem is it's really hard for him to one-on-one people later on in the game. So once that Jax, gets Spear of Sojin and Trinity Force, you're not split pushing that guy anymore. It doesn't matter if you have 5 items. You're not split pushing him. He's going to beat you probably. So unless you have help. So he's a very kind of early to mid game. He does push really well But because he's so vulnerable, because he can get caught out while he's split pushing, and because he has a hard time 1v1ing a lot of these other like high scaling fighters like your Irelias, your Jaxes, that type of thing, then late game he is kind of a liability. You can't really split push with him that well. He has to come to team fights. So that sort of limits your your tactical diversity with him. He has delayed damage on his ult, so this can be a problem, particularly in a meta where enchanters are super popular. So if we look over at the supports, a lot of the highest winning supports and some of the most played supports right now are going to be enchanters. You're thinking like your Namis, your Sonas, your Jannas, your Sorakas. All that stuff is super strong right now, especially the Sona, Nami, and Soraka, right? And so that means they can potentially heal through your ult. So, your ult, yeah, it does 50% max health damage or something, whatever, if you have Leandries, but at the same time, they have 10 seconds to try to heal through that, right? Even if they don't have an enchanter, if they have a lot of lifesteal, if you put this on a Vayne or something and she's got Gensu's plus Bladeru and King, she might just heal through all the damage. So if it's a Vlad that you're putting this on, or a Mundo, or something like that, it gives the enemy team a lot of time to respond to that damage because it's not burst, it's overtime, and it's predictable. So that can be a problem in this meta where there just is an overabundance of healing, both from the enchanter role, and then there are so many Bladeru and King users, on-hit users. You've got your, like I said, you got your Vayne, and now Varus is becoming a little more popular. Kog'Maw's trying to come back a little bit more. Vlad is still really popular. Mundo, especially against AP champions like Mordekaiser, is becoming a little more popular. So, it can be a really strong ult in the right circumstances, but it can also feel really anemic if they have a lot of healing and shielding. He doesn't have any crowd control. So usually champions that don't have a lot of mobility might have a pretty good chunk of crowd control. So if you think of someone like Sion, or you think of someone like Malachi, or things like that, usually a lot of times they're going to have a lot of CC. He doesn't have that either. So like the only CC that you're going to have is if you ult somebody and you've got a Rylai's, and you're going to put a little slow on him. But other than that, there's really not that much CC. And he has very limited defense. So, his only like defensive stuff are the heals he can get off his W and his shield. So that can be a pretty big liability, So, like, basically you're picking someone who, like, can't split push that well in team fights. He can't really frontline that well, sort of, but he doesn't have, like, anything that gives him extra health. He doesn't have CC for team fights. He has a hard time getting to the back line because he doesn't have any mobility in team fights. So, it's like, what is he then? And so, like, basically what he is a ghost bot. Like, it allows you need to get a kill in Snowball, and then you use that ghost to get an advantage in Snowball lanes, or more specifically, a dragon bot. Like we mentioned before, you need to get that dragon in Siege. So you need to try to close out in the mid-game, push people, get priority, go roam, go grab dragons, scuttles, get a farm advantage. All that stuff. So that's pretty much Mordekaiser in a nutshell. He's a very, very specialty champion. There are some people, that one-trick him, but there are a lot of situations where he's not going to be that great. A lot of his best matchups, if we were looking at U.GG here, are against kind of these other immobile tanks that can't punish him too much early. Poppy was a really popular one just because she can get pushed in early. She does not have great wave clear, and he doesn't have any mobility. So her W doesn't do anything to him. And so Poppy, he was kind of a pretty hard counter to Poppy. Singed is another one. It's interesting. I don't really understand all of these counter picks that much. Alistar is an interesting one. That's obviously for bot lane. Galio, Yorick. I thought it was interesting that he beats Yorick, 8% of the time. So I don't really get that one. I guess his ghosts are better than Yorick's Maiden in a straight showdown. I'm not really sure. But both of them are kind of like immobile, just bruiser type of champs. He actually beats Vlad somehow too, which I don't fully get that. I guess he can just push Vlad in a tower a lot early and get priority, because Vlad doesn't have great wave clear early on. But anyway, so there are situations where he can be very strong. Just be very careful. If they have a jungler that could camp top lane, or they have a lot of CC or whatever, it can be pretty rough. And to an extent, it kind of like really successful Mordekaiser play just kind of counts on the enemy underestimating or not understanding him. Like, it counts on them kind of goofing up to take that third hit off the Q most of the time, or to not understand what your Siphon of Souls is doing, and you catch them off guard with a big heal or a big shield off of your E. It just kind of banks on them not knowing what he does. So if you run into someone that does know what he does, that can potentially be problematic. But overall, he has his good spots and he has his bad spots. Okay, so recommended runes. Airy is the number one that most people get. And I was kind of perplexed by this at first. I was like, why would you get Airy? Because early on, you're just pretty much pushing the wave. You don't have a lot of like great reliable ways to harass the enemy, unless you hit him with like an E or something. But the main reason for this, obviously, is his ult. Because whenever you have the ult on him, the Airy is going to jump back to them over and over and over again. So you can get like 3 or 4 procs of Airy on them whenever they have their ult. You can also use your W. When you heal an ally with your W, then the Airy will go over to them. So that's something that is pretty useful as well. Nimbus Cloak is really nice. When you cast your ult on somebody, it's going to give you that boost of movement speed to get up close to them, to get that third hit with Mace of Spades, or to get your other spells on them. So that can be helpful. Absolute Focus is nice. It gives you extra AP to push. You do heal quite a bit off of your Siphon. So that can be handy. And then Scorch is all right, too. There's just not something that's that much better there. You could do Water Walking. Could be legit in some circumstances, because that's going to allow you to run up and down that river to go contest scuttles or go roam and, invade the enemy jungler or whatever. So I think Water Walking, I haven't seen a lot of people get that, but if you want to do that style where you push and roam, which I think is definitely possible into a lot of matchups where you might want to play more against a Poppy, for example. Just put them in a tower and just run up and down that river. That could be good. Then I saw almost universally everybody go Shield Bash and Revitalize. Revitalize is going to help you heal yourself a lot more. Then, of course, Shield Bash, you almost always have a shield up, so it's just going to give you free armor and magic resist, which is a pretty good value. And then if you do happen to auto-attack them as well, that's a little added bonus. Okay, so those are recommended runes. Now, there are other runes. People are just kind of all over the place with these runes that I saw before, and it's probably very situational. I did look up a lot of the Mordekaiser one-tricks up here, and there really was not a consensus. It just depended on the situation. They would get a bunch of different runes. So some other options that I saw, Airy was the most common one that I saw across the board, and the main reason for that is you get multiple triggers on your ult. So that's handy. And then Nimbus Cloak, like I said, obviously is what you would want to take if you're going into this tree. Couple other options. Phase Rush was something that I saw sometimes on people. You get that third hit, and then you get to run towards them. You get to resist slows, so it's more likely you're going to be able to get in their face. So Phase Rush plus Nimbus Cloak, you are really going to be running fast to run people down. So that can potentially be pretty nice. You could do something like Transcendence if you want the CDR. Really, your CDs are fairly manageable by themselves, and this doesn't come online until level 10. But you don't get a lot of CDR in your kit. You're going Sorcerer Boots, you're going Leandry's, Rylai's. So having Transcendence could be something pretty decent. Absolute Focus, though, because you heal yourself, is probably going to be the way to go. But Water Walking for that extra 25 bonus movement speed, in addition to getting the extra bonus magic damage, can be really nice. So I think that that's handy, especially if you want to push and roam, which I think is a pretty good strat with him. Gathering Storm, it does give you a lot later on. He does have good AP ratios, but as I said before, you really want to try to end the game as fast as you can with Morde, because he has a hard time fitting into late game strategies. His team fight isn't as good as if you're against a tank top lane. If you're against a Malachi or a Scion or something, they're just going to have way more CC and contributions to team fights a lot of times. And then if you're against a split pusher, you're against a Fiora, Jax, Kale, just any Urgot, almost everything's going to beat you in one-on-one later on in the game in a split push. And so playing for late, Gathering Storm really starts coming online around 20 minutes. Playing for late is just not the way to go, I don't think, with Mordekaiser. So I think that Scorch, if you're against melee and you're consistently going to be able to hit them with your E, for example, when they go up to try to trade, that could be good. If you're against ranged or you just don't think you're going to be able to get very many trades in, I think water walking can be good if you're just going to push them in a tower. A couple of other options. I did see some people get electrocute. This does give you extra burst damage. Also gives you access to Taste of Blood. Nice healing in lane again. And then Ravenous Hunter, which is even more healing and shielding in lane. So if you want to like double down on your healing, this build can be pretty good. Adds that burst. Now I'm not sure. Let's see. 3 airy hits would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 30% AP ratio. And probably like 75 damage. So Electrocute's pretty close to getting 3 airy hits in terms of damage. You might actually even get a little bit more with Electrocute. So that's definitely something to consider. I did see a good chunk of people go in Electrocute, although like the one tricks oftentimes went airy more than anything else. So it does have a bit more utility because you can heal and shield allies with summon airy. I even saw some bot lane Mordekaisers going Ardent Sensor when they were playing 80 carry Mordekaiser because you can trigger it off of your W heal. And it, I don't know, it just has good value or something. But that was something interesting I never really thought of before, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, Electrocute can work. I think that's about all I saw out of this tree as an option. Some people in the secondary tree would take like Triumph and Coup de Grace instead of Revitalize and Shield Bash. I saw there were a couple of instances where people would go like Grasp top lane, but it was extremely rare. There was another build that was pretty interesting that I saw that would do Glacial Augment and rush Twin Shadows so that you can get close to them and get that third hit in your ult. The problem is you're not going to have you're going to delay at least significantly your Leandre's Rylai's combo, but Twin Shadows is much cheaper, so you do hit your power spike a little bit faster off of that. So that was an interesting build. If you go for that build, you could go for Footwear and save some cash, or Perfect Timing, and then most likely Biscuit Delivery, and then Approach Velocity, which is really nice. It allows you to move 15% closer to people that you slow off of your ghosts. So that was something that wasn't super popular, but that was an interesting choice, and I think that kind of makes sense. You don't need a mana item, obviously, first, so you're not losing a lot by getting Twin Shadows. So that would allow you to come online faster. I think Twin Shadows is 2,400 gold. So that'd be cool. You can play around with that, try it out, see what you think. I wouldn't do Klepto or Spellbook, though. I think Glacial Augment has potential, although it was rare. There's only a couple of people that did that, and that was usually like mid-lane Mordekaiser. But yeah, if you're not sure what to do, just default to the Airy Nimbus Cloak Transcendence Scorch package. That's what I saw a lot of people doing. Okay. So that's it for that. As far as recommended items, we've talked about this quite a bit. I think that Leandre's is what most people were rushing. It was either Leandre's or Rylai's. Rylai's is going to give you the slow to hunt people down. Leandre's is going to give you a ton of extra damage. So it just kind of depends on what you want. Rylai's is a little bit cheaper, so you can come online faster with that. Leandre's also does a lot more damage in just like team fights as well, because if you're hitting people with your E, you're hitting multiple targets, or your W, you're hitting multiple targets, all of those are going to get the Leandre's proc on him. So it's kind of up to you. I think there's a better intermediate power spike too with Leandre's, because you get Haunting Guise, which is going to do a lot of extra damage, because it's going to keep you in combat a long time with the ult. So if we look at Madness here, damaging an enemy champion generates this stack. Deal 2% increased damage per stack up to a maximum of 10%. So that basically means that your ult is going to do an extra 10% damage too a lot of times, because you're going to be generating these stacks for quite a while. So that's really handy because it keeps you in combat. It basically keeps this on them the whole time, in addition to the 7.5%. So yeah, you're doing 7.5% of their maximum damage, but you're also dealing an extra 2% damage, or 2% stacking up to 10% damage. And that also applies to this. So this is also doing 10% more. So I would probably rush Leandre's, and that's what I saw most people getting a lot of the time. They're very similar. They both have like similar HP and ability power. Rylai's does have more. Rylai's is cheaper, but this is a lot of extra damage. So either way, I would probably go those 2 items most of the time. It's just the order that you get them can vary, probably depending on your matchup. But try to favor Leandre's. Haunting Guys is a really good 1,500 gold item. And Leandre's just going to be your bigger damage item. Okay. Then Zhonya's is something that a lot of people get next. It can allow you potentially to try to flash onto the back line and just like ult the AD carry, you know, to do a ton of damage, then Zhonya's to buy yourself some time. Or if you get a good flank in, maybe you can like flank behind and like start messing with the AD carry, blow them up, and then Zhonya's to buy some time. So just gives you a bit of extra armor, gives you some extra protection. In some circumstances, a lot of your stuff still works even when you're Zhonya'ing. So your ghost will still attack people. You know, your ult will still deal damage to people. So he's got some pretty decent synergy with Zhonya's overall. If you're really rich, you can go Death Cap. He has pretty good AP ratios on his abilities, but that's a very expensive item. So it's kind of up to you. Twin Shadows, like I said, if you're going for that one specific build, if you're going for kind of the Glacial Augment build, which seems cool, but you're losing a lot of damage off of that because Twin Shadows only has like 80 AP on it, which is cool and everything, but it's not the same as the Madness and, you know, all of the stuff that Leandre's does. So keep that in mind. I have seen a couple of people rushing Proto Belt. That's interesting because you're kind of cheating the curve. You're getting to 2,500 gold for an item like that. That does allow you to gap close, to jump right in their face, and potentially, you know, blow them up with that 3rd hit off of your Q. So that could potentially be pretty powerful, but once again, it's pretty anemic in terms of the damage overall, right? It doesn't have a lot of synergy with other stuff you have going on in your kit, but it does give you that little bit of gap closer that you're missing. Now, I have seen some people in the past go for, like Gunblade on Mord. I never saw any of the top, like, one-trick peoples build that ever. If you look at, like, this guy is the #1 in Korea right now. Grandmaster, Mord one-trick. Never builds that. Now, here, he's in bot lane, so it's important to note that he has been playing him in bot lane mostly lately, which is why he's going Exhaust. And why you'll see him go something like Targon's Brace and then Ardent Sensor. But even when he's going middle, you know, he's going Leandre's plus Rylai's, Ignite, and now he's switching over to Electrocute in this instance, although he took Airy down in the bot lane. How do I... These ads are so invasive these days. So it just kind of switches up, and it probably depends a lot on the matchup. And like I said, I'm not going to be a 100% expert and understand the matchup. Now, top lane, he did take Airy and then Domination, but he was against Pantheon. So he called an audible there and ended up getting Ninja Tabby and Seeker's Arm Guards because he was really far behind. But there are a lot of different options. I think, personally, you should be taking Teleport if you're in top lane a lot. He was taking Ignite. But my reasoning is you really, really want those dragons. I mean, the dragons are so clutch for getting macro pressure and just taking over. Although, like, early on, you kind of don't... It's really hard to kill somebody without Ignite. You just don't have enough burst damage, I think. And so that's probably why he's taking Ignite in the top lane. So, you know, it's tough. It's tough to decide, but... You're going to be losing out on a lot of dragons if you don't take that. However, if you do kill them top lane, then you do get their ghost, and that ghost can help you take down their tower quicker. So if you're pretty confident you're going to be able to get a kill with that Ignite, that can be really, really good in Snowball-y, because you're going to get a lot of extra plates and a lot of extra damage potentially off of that. So different things to keep in mind there. All right, so if you're not sure, almost every game, I would probably just go Leandre, Rylai, Zhonya's. I think that's the most fail-safe way to go about it, and then you can get some of these other things in some situations if you want to. You notice even when he went middle lane, this guy does not go for the Glacial Augment ever. It's almost always Airy or Electrocute, depending on the matchup. So occasionally a Phase Rush will sneak its way in there. But so I don't recommend the Glacial Augment that much. It sounds cute. It sounds fun. It's interesting. But yeah, nobody goes Gunblade. Nobody goes Glacial Augment. So don't get those things most of the time. I mean, like I said, if you want to go Glacial, if you're mid lane, maybe it makes sense in some circumstances. So as far as just play style, and then we'll go ahead and end up the guide here. I pulled up just a little map. This isn't as good as there used to be. There used to be one where you could zoom in and move around, but I think that website crashed or something. I couldn't really find it. If anyone knows of a good site where you can kind of draw, that would be really helpful, especially if I could zoom in. But we'll just kind of do the best that we can here. Yeah, I never reset zoom. It looks like you should be able to zoom, because it says to reset it. But anyways, we'll just work with what we have here. Is this zoom? No, you're just kind of like grabbing random stuff. Okay. Anyways, so with Mordekaiser in almost every matchup, you want to push as much as possible. You know, you kind of, it's just how he's built. You need to get your shield going. You need to heal yourself for the damage you're doing. So you just want to push in, you know, as much as possible. And then when their minion wave is like about to crash into the tower, when it's like around here, that gives you the opportunity then to come down here, you know, potentially get a ward here. Then also track that scuttle timer. You know, once it starts becoming gray, and especially once it's golden, you know the junglers, like some of the junglers are going to end up going there, right? So, anyways, when you start seeing that scuttle pop up over here, tell your jungler, hey, let's go fight for the scuttle. Just ping it, ping the scuttle. Say, let's get scuttle, and then push up, put them into this tower, and then you can come down here and help your jungler grab this scuttle. So that's a really nice way you can use your pressure. Or if your jungler's not farming that efficiently, especially in lower elo brackets, if you're like, you know, silver, bronze, iron, that type of stuff, your jungler's just like not having it. Then you can actually push up like this. Maybe they are just like constantly camping bottom or something like that, and they're just not really farming top at all. Then you can push up here and then just like drop down and just farm your allies' jungle. You know, if you're just not feeling safe enough, you don't know where the enemy jungler is, but they haven't done this Gromp in a long time and they're on the bottom side of the map, just go grab your Gromp. That way it's not getting wasted anyways. So you always want to make sure your jungle resources are being used efficiently. Now, obviously, if they yell at you for that, if they ping you back or whatever, you know, you don't want to tilt your team, so don't take it. Obviously, don't take blue buff from them or anything like that. But I think that a lot of people would understand, or they may not even notice, frankly, depending on the elo bracket, if you go down there and grab that Gromp. But just do something with your pressure other than make yourself vulnerable. That's the #1 thing. On a champion that has to hard push like this, you want to be looking for advantages. Other options that I talked about before, you know, you push up as usual, then maybe you could come down here. This would be good, especially if you're going water walking. You could come down here, maybe drop a ward here. If you want to donate your control ward to the mid lane, you could even donate a control ward here. That'll also let you know if they have this warded. And if they are pushed up, for example, if their mid laner's like Diana or something and is pushing your Cassid into the tower, you could actually rotate down and gank them. Right, like that, and then your top laner's not going to be able to follow you. So that's an option you could do, come down and gank. If this doesn't look like you're going to have an opportunity there, then you could run over here, try to grab their raptors. Now, you need to be careful with this, though. You know, step 1 is you need to have this warded. So if you don't want to do the gank path down here, you could come over here and maybe drop a control ward here in their jungle. Just to kind of track where they are and see what they're doing. If you see them bot lane, though, like let's say you see the enemy jungler bot lane, then you know you can go in and take their raptors, right? And if the red's up, you could even take their red, just farm out their jungle, you know, if your enemy's pushed in, depending on how fast they can counter push you. But usually you'll have plenty of time to come down and look at something. It's going to take them, you know, maybe 20 seconds or so to reset this lane. And then if they want to push in, that'll take them another 10 seconds or so. So that should be plenty of time to walk down here, grab raptors, and then, you know, come back up here and catch this wave. They're probably going to think you just backed. Unless they have a lot of this warded, you push in and you back out of their vision, they're probably just going to assume that you backed, right? So they may not even know that you're down there taking their raptors, right? If you're on the enemy side, then, you know, you push up to here. Then you can come down and maybe try to grab their Gromp. You know, grab Scuttle, same deal. See if they're pushed up all the way over here. You know, you could rotate down here. So just look for opportunities. And if you have teleport, see if you could teleport bot lane. Or if if you're like already rotating down here, to take a look, you have them pushed in, you're trying to decide what to do. Your bot lane gets a couple of kills, ping this dragon. Just say, get the dragon, get the dragon, get the dragon, ping it. Just say, I'm on my way, and then just walk down there. Just come over here. If you get a gank, fine. If not, whatever. Just push them into the tower as fast as you can, and then just rotate down here and grab this dragon. Then that should give you plenty of time to potentially, after you have that dragon, they might counter push. They might try to take your tower. But once you get that dragon, you can rotate bottom and maybe take this tower or take this tower. And then that's fine. If they take your tower top, you got a dragon plus a tower bot lane. And you might even be able to do it fast enough, especially if you have teleport. You might even be able to take this tower and then teleport back up here before they even take your tower. So always look for those opportunities. If you have some advantages elsewhere on the map, just see where you can roam. It is a little awkward because you don't have a lot of move speed. Once again, that's why I think that water walking could be pretty handy here. But that could be something that's helpful. I mean, almost everybody goes Sork Boots, and I think you kind of have to go Sork Boots, but there might be a world where, in some circumstances, you could go Mobility Boots and roam around the map a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's really how you have to play Mordekaiser. You have to use that advantage, something that could be a weakness, in that you have to push up. You can actually turn into an advantage, but you have to work for it. You can't just sit here and just like push them in a tower and then just try to harass them here over and over again. That is a failing formula because you don't have enough range or power to add much harass to the situation. So you're just making yourself vulnerable, for the jungler to come around and eventually pick you up, right? So you want to push and then go do something else. Go find something to do. Scuttles, jungle camps, ganks, make a play for dragon, get a better back timing on them, come back with stronger items. But just you have to do something proactive with your very strong push early game, or it's going to be a waste, and it could potentially even be a vulnerability if you're pushed up into the tower constantly. Okay, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Once again, sorry I'm not a Mordekaiser one-trick super expert, but hopefully I gave you some ideas to help you think about how to optimize Morde a little bit more. I think something that doesn't get talked about a lot is how to use that advantage, like we talked about at the end there. How to use your lane advantage, how to turn that potential weakness into a strength if you use it properly with good macro. I think pretty much everybody knows to go Leandries and Rylai, so I hope I at least explain that a little bit why, and maybe explain the nuance behind why people take some of these extra runes. So I think I brought something to the table. Hopefully you learned something out of this and found it useful. Remember, if you'd like a guide yourself, you can email me at thestratchprofessor@gmail.com. I'm happy to set you up with that. Special thanks to Marcus again for the generous donation for this. I really appreciate it. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. It just takes a couple of clicks. It's easy. It's free. It really helps out a ton with visibility on the channel. And be sure to check out the rest of the content as well. We have a lot of different champion guides. I stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a really awesome, friendly, welcoming community. I try to be as interactive and answer as many questions as I can in the chat. We also have coaching sessions. So I think we're up to over 170 coaching sessions on the channel, so be sure to check that out. I have them all cataloged in a playlist for you, so it's real easy to skim and browse and find games you might want to see commentary for. If you'd like a coaching session yourself, you can email me about that also. It's just $25. I'll do it on stream. I will immortalize it in that playlist. You can always access it anytime you want, and you're helping other people learn how to play better by making your coaching session public. If you want to do it private, we can do that as well. If you're kind of nervous, you don't want to share it with everybody, but I think there's definitely a good little group of people that enjoy watching those on the channel. So if you're interested in that, you can email about that as well. And otherwise, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. I'll see you next time.